So welcome to today's webinar. It's called Mastering the Consultative Sales Process. So I appreciate everybody taking a little time out of their schedule to jump into it today. So I am J.Aguilar, the sales manager with TTC Tour Brands. I cover 6 award-winning guided tour brands from Luxury Gold, Insight Vacations, Trafalgar, Cost Saver, Brendan Vacations, as well as Contiki. But today's webinar isn't going to be focused on learning about these products. We really do want to focus on the consultative sales process, which is also referred to as CSP for short. So I'll just be referring to it as CSP moving forward to save time. So the consultative sales process, or CSP, is a customer-first approach that's really all about building trust, uncovering the real needs, and delivering solutions that truly matter to your clients. Unlike traditional sales methods that focus on kind of pitching products, consultative selling is really about kind of partnering with your customer to really help them succeed and find the right solution that they're going to absolutely love. Um, oh, it's okay, Christine. If you can't talk, there's no pressure whatsoever. So yeah, it's just if you want to chime in, feel free to chime in. If you can't, I'm not going to judge you're not going to lose any points on my side, I promise. All right, so kind of moving the presentation along here. The focus of today is we want confidence with a proven customer-focused sales questioning process. So we're going to dive into a highly researched best practice approach that puts the customer at the heart of every conversation. And the goal is to help you feel confident and natural using a questioning process that really works. We're also going to be discovering your customer's exact needs. This isn't just about asking questions, it's about asking the right ones. And we're going to learn how to uncover what really matters to your customer by applying this powerful questioning work. We're also going to focus on features versus advantages versus benefits and how to know the difference. So we're going to clear up the confusion in terms of what a feature is, advantages, basically what it does, benefits, why it matters to them, your clients, and mastering this distinction kind of helps you speak your customer's language and connect on what they care about most. And then what do you want our customers to say about us? When we apply best in class, customer focused sales techniques, it's really about what you want your customers to feel and say about you. So we want to aim for things like they really understood me, they didn't seem like they were just selling to me. It seemed like they were really honestly trying to help me. And the big one, you want them to say things like, I trust them, right? That's how you build that long-term relationship, is you build that trust. And then at the end, we're just going to spot the key moments of truth. We're going to go over that in a brief detail where every interaction really is a chance to shine. We're going to identify those critical moments in your sales and delivery process where you can truly impress, build trust, and create that lasting impact as well. So I do see some more people joining in here. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mics and allow the camera as well if you feel comfortable doing so. Feel free to chime in as I will be asking a few questions along the way as well. So moving on to the next slide here. I don't really love this acronym. It's WWWOCTS. What do you want, or what do you want your customers to think? It's really kind of sloppy. So we're going to start with the end in mind. Let's take the big red chair test. Imagine your customer sitting in a big, comfy red chair being interviewed about their experience with you. What would you love to hear them say? And if anybody wants to just chime in there, go for it. It's okay. You guys feeling a little shy today? I know it's early. Think about it. What would you want your customers to say, right? Hopefully only good things, right? We don't want them to say things like, oh, I felt rushed, they weren't really paying attention to me. We're kind of flipping the script and we want to start with the end in mind. So because if we know what we want them to say, we can kind of work backwards to make it happen, right? So if you had a goal in terms of what you would want your customers to say about you, keep that in mind. Like, what do you want your customers to say about you? And that's really going to be the focus for you and what you're going to get out of this presentation. So some of the questions that we want to spark with kind of the vision in mind, what do you hope your customer says about you? How do they talk about you right now? What words do you want them to use when describing you to others? So if your customer was on a podcast talking about you, what would you be kind of proud to hear from them? So let's kind of build on that. What behaviors, habits, or actions are going to get you there? What's your personal game plan to kind of turn that vision, that goal into your reality. So it's time for a little inspiration, so what great kind of sounds like in terms of what we hope our customer says. They just kind of get me, right? They solve my problems, they help me plan that perfect trip. They felt more like a trusted advisor than a typical salesperson. I've worked with them for several years. We've built this great relationship, and I really do trust them. These are some great things that you should aspire to when you're in sales. And this is sales. We are travel advisors. We are selling travel to our clients. So for us, building that long-term relationship is critical. It is very interesting what clients say at times. Absolutely. Yeah, you can't please everyone, that's for sure. So how can we make this happen? Well, we're going to learn how to ask great questions, really listen, and then offer solutions that matter. We're going to be friendly, we're going to show that you care, and then we're going to follow through. And the most important thing, once that initial meeting is over, you're going to stay in touch, you're going to build trust, and you're never going to give up on that relationship because you never know, right? There could be a client that you spoke to a few years ago, and all of a sudden you reach out just to kind of check in. Next thing you know, they're all of a sudden interested in doing a future trip with you, right? Yes, absolutely. Always listen. All right, so let's jump over to moments of truth. Every snapshot that shapes the customer moments. These moments can be positive or negative, right? And they really do matter, especially in today's kind of social media world where one bad moment tends to go viral. So, why they matter more than ever is in the age of instant reviews and viral posts, people are more likely to share a negative experience than a positive one. And that's why every moment of truth is a golden opportunity to kind of wow your customer or potentially risk losing them. So, real life moments of truth can be everyday encounters that you don't really think about, right? Think about that friendly bus driver always says good morning, hops on the mic at each station to remind you to grab your stuff, wishes you a great day. These little small gestures can actually have a huge impact. On top of that, let's think about the Chesterfield Mayfair, London. Beautiful hotel, red carpet entrance, doorman is greeting you by name, staff who kind of know who you are before you even check in. Their whole vibe is they're kind of making you feel like royalty, right? These are their moments of truth. So really think about it from your perspective. Your business only exists in these moments of truth. When your clients are in front of you, when they're giving you a call over the phone, where they're emailing you back and forth, that is their experience with you. So these are the only moments you will have with them. Chances are the moment they leave your desk, the moment they stop emailing you, they're on to 100 other things that they have to kind of worry about or deal with. So these small little moments that you do have with your clients, you want to kind of present yourself in the best way possible, which leads us to the next slide. What shadows do you cast? What do you guys kind of think this means? And feel free to type that in the chat if you'd like. It's really similar to our moments of truth, right? It's every day through your actions, words, and pretty much your body language as well. You're casting a shadow, and that shadow is the impression that you're going to leave behind. Whether you realize it or not, people are forming opinions. Yeah, your appearance can matter for sure. You're forming opinions based on what they see and feel from you, right? I try to make sure that whenever I do sales visits to visit my travel advisors, because you guys are my clients, that, I try to shave, I try to make sure that my hair's done. I always try to wear a nice, clean outfit because it's important to me. I don't want to show up to your office looking like I haven't shaved in 4 days. My shirt has, food stains on it. That's going to leave an incredibly horrible impression. And I know for a fact that I'm one of those people that if I have even a tiny little stain on my shirt, I'll go out of my way to kind of get a new shirt at a local store if I have to, just to make sure that I look nice and sharp every time I visit. So it is important for you to kind of set your own standards in terms of what kind of shadow you want to cast to your guests. I will say, those people that kind of go that extra effort to really kind of look clean and look well put together tend to have a more positive reaction right off the bat from every single person they meet. You can try it for yourself. Wear just a t-shirt and jeans and go out into the supermarket, and chances are you probably won't have a lot of interactions. On the other hand, dress to the nines in your Sunday's best and just go out to the grocery store, and I guarantee you people are going to start reacting differently just by having you kind of look in that elevated level or way. So why does this matter? Your shadow speaks louder than your words. It really tells your customers, can I trust you? Do you care? You kind of got yourself together. Are you here to help, or are you just going to try to sell me? So it really helps your clients get that initial impression to kind of connect the dots. And really, this relates that back to that moment of truth, right? We want what we want our customers to say about us. And the actions that we then are going to have after that, these behaviors are going to create these moments of truth. And over time, those moments are going to shape what your customers actually do say about you. So the shadow that you cast today becomes the story they tell tomorrow. If you need any help, kind of more of a visual metaphor, it really is about presenting yourself well to people. And it does have a very big impact. In fact, they've done lots of studies that show psychologically for us as shoppers and consumers, we tend to be more agreeable to somebody who's more well dressed and put together than somebody who's kind of dressed sloppily or just kind of behaving in a way that we don't really like. So just keep that in mind because it does have a psychological impact, and our industry is all psychological. We are booking trips that are typically people's disposable income, right? People don't have to take a vacation. They can skip it for a year if they want to. We hope they don't, but they don't really have to take a vacation. So you're making an emotional decision when you travel. So psychology is a huge part of what we do. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Ron. I think I thank you. All right, so let's learn the three principles of CSP. Focus first on your customer, right? We've all heard it. The customer is always right. These aren't just ideas, they're really kind of the heartbeat of how we build relationships with our customers. In fact, every TTC team member, we kind of live and breathe this mantra. These are kind of our core principles that we use when we're kind of out in the field. So we want to focus on our customer. It really all starts here. We're going to ask questions. We're going to be curious. We're not going to jump into product talk. We're not going to really just start promoting different things that we think might be the right trip for them. We want to get to know what the customer really needs. Sometimes the best solution isn't just a product, it's a service, it's a suggestion, or simply listening. And then we're also going to be good learners. We want to put the customer first. It kind of sounds like common sense, but is it common practice? Are you actively doing that? Or are you just looking at your watch thinking, gosh, I have that meeting in about an hour. I hope this guy doesn't take up too much of my time, right? So it's important to make sure that, yes, we know these concepts, but putting them into practice is probably more important than just kind of knowing them. So kind of what does it mean for you to truly put your customer first? And you don't have to answer, but I would recommend maybe just writing these things down so that you can review them later for yourself. So just write that down. What does it mean to you to truly put that customer first? Like, how does that impact you? Now, secondly, we want to focus on the solution. Now that you understand the needs, then you can talk about what you can do for them, right? This is where your product or service becomes part of a tailored solution, not a generic pitch, right? You don't want to just go into the kind of pitch that you hear 1,000 times a day from every time, whether you're on social media or on the television or in person. What does a solution look like in your world, in your role? You're looking to kind of learn about your client's needs so that you can offer that perfectly tailored solution. And then just remember, this is probably the most important one. Being right is not persuasive. Just because you're right doesn't mean people are going to listen. You got to think back to when you were younger, when your parents told you not to party too much or waste money. They were right, right? Like I'm sure we all wish we didn't, do some things that we did when we were kids. But did we listen back then? No, right? We were kids. We just wanted to do what we wanted. It's not persuasive. So what does it mean? Being right isn't persuasive. What does that mean to you? How do you actually persuade someone to take action? That's really important. If you can answer that question, it'll help you kind of start narrowing down some of the tactics that you're probably already, whether it's conscious or unconsciously, already doing to kind of persuade people in the right direction. So these principles are a journey. You kind of think of them as stages in the conversation, not a checklist. You kind of start with a little curiosity, move on to some solution, and of course, always lead with empathy. And we want to relate it back to that snap frame activity. Did you follow all of those initial principles? Where did they kind of show up in the conversation? Are you making sure you put that best foot forward? A good everyday life example, instead of saying something like, oh, you have to watch this movie, it's amazing, maybe try something like, what kind of movies do you like? Right? That changes the conversation completely. Instead of you just pitching the film that you feel is the best film to watch, you're asking them right off the bat. You could love Marvel movies, big superhero movie fan. Your person might not care about that at all. So why would they want to watch a new Marvel movie if they're not interested in that sort of thing, right? So it's important. Everybody has that same goal, but it's all about taking a different approach. How does that mindset shift apply to your customer conversation? So that's a good question to write down. How does the mindset shift apply to your customers' conversations? All right. So, what is CSP? It really comes down to the consultative sales process. It's a customer first approach that's all about understanding before offering. It's not about pushing products, it's about asking the right questions, listening deeply, and then delivering solutions that truly fit. So the spend questioning model is really about uncovering what really matters to your customers. So the acronym SPEND stands for the types of questions you want to be asking throughout your conversation. We have S, which is situational questions. What's their current desires or environment? What's their current situation? P is for problem questions. What challenges or pain points are they facing? E is for effect questions. How are those problems impacting them? N is for needs. What do they really need to solve this issue? And then D is decision. What does their decision-making process look like? This model kind of helps guide you through the conversation from surface level facts to deeper insights, and where it's all about listening to uncover those needs. It's not just about asking questions, it's about really listening to the answers. So make sure you use active listening techniques like paraphrasing to confirm you understand what they're saying. Noticing their tone and their emotion is huge. When you can become really good at reading people, you'll start to become an effective salesperson as well. Asking thoughtful follow-ups. This really helps build trust and shows your customer that you genuinely care and that you're paying attention. So the goal of making sure that we're attentively listening is we want to present a tailored solution. Once you understand their needs, you're going to present your solution using what we call the FAB method. FAB is an acronym for features, what it is, advantage, what it does, and benefit, why it matters to them. So this ensures that your solution feels personalized, relevant, and also valuable. Oh, and I think we had a couple more people join in. Hey, Zuli, I'm going to unmute your mic in case you want to chime in at all, okay? Allow camera, allow mic. All right. So the traditional model of selling, I'm sure we're all familiar with this. If anybody has ever bought a car, you're probably already very familiar with this traditional model of selling, right? You walk onto a dealership, somebody approaches you, they're going to spend about, let's say it's an hour-long conversation, they're going to spend about 6 minutes trying to build trust. What does that mean? They're going to notice what you're wearing, they're going to notice what car you drove in on, and they're going to start to try to build a little bit of a conversation, but they're only going to spend 6 minutes on that. Once they've spent that 6 minutes building trust, they're going to then try to qualify you, which means what car you drove in on. If it's a high-end vehicle, they're going to steer you towards other high-end vehicles. If it was a, budget-friendly vehicle, they're going to kind of push you in that direction. So 20% of that time, or about 12 minutes, is going to be spent them basically sizing you up. Then they're going to jump right into telling you 30% of the presentation is just going to be them repeating for 18 minutes the benefits of this car versus that car versus this car versus that car versus this car. And then when they think they have you, they're going to get real aggressive. 40% of their time is closing techniques, pushing you towards that sale. Whether it's smooth or aggressive, they're going to spend 40% of their time essentially trying to get you to give them money so that they can make the sale. Now, that is the traditional model of selling. The consultative model of selling, we're going to flip that pyramid upside down. 30% of your time is spent building trust. For a 60-minute conversation, 18 minutes, those first 18 minutes, you are spending building trust. You're learning about your clients. You're finding out where they've traveled before. You're finding out how they like to travel. You're finding out about their family, their relationships, what's important to them, so that you can start learning about your clients. So 30% of that time is spent building trust. The next 30%, now we're starting to identify their wants, their needs, and we're going to really identify the problem. For us, that problem is where they want to travel next. And then 30% is going to be presenting or telling. Once you've gotten to know your clients and they've told you, hey, I don't want to do another cruise. I've heard Trafalgar is the best guided tour company in the world. I really want to focus on going to Italy. Now you can really start narrowing that down, right? Okay, let me tell you about this great trip with Trafalgar called Best of Italy that's going to cover the entire country. And then you're going to go into that feature, advantage, and benefit of that specific tour. So 10% is going to be confirming, right? Once you've presented some great ideas and they seem to be receptive to them, you're going to start confirming that with them. So does this trip kind of match your needs? It seems like the timing and the departure dates work out for what you're looking for, and it also matches up with your budget. And then the bottom 10%, we can kind of combine that. It's going to be follow-up if you're not able to close the sale on that initial visit, which is okay. Or that 10% can also be closing techniques, focusing on making the booking. You've already walked them through the features, advantages, and benefits. You've really kind of tailored a great solution for them. If you can close them on that first visit, fantastic, great. If you can't, don't beat yourself up. Make sure to just follow up. Set a note in your calendar to say, hey, I'm going to email this person in a day. I'm going to follow up with a nice PDF flyer of that itinerary, and then we can go from there. So now ask yourself, in your current process, are you telling or are you selling? There's two sales styles, and knowing when to use each is important. So there are two main approaches in sales, and both have their place depending on where you are in the customer journey. So the product sales approach, this style is all about the product, its features, specs, and what it can do. It's often used when the customer already kind of knows what they want. If you're in a transactional or quick decision environment, or if you're highlighting something new or innovative. So just think to yourself or ask yourself, what words or behaviors come to mind when you think of a product-focused sales approach? And now let's do a customer-focused sales approach. This style puts the customer at the center. It's about understanding their needs, challenges, and goals before offering that solution. It's ideal when you're trying to build a long-term relationship with your client and the customer needs help identifying the right solution. This is also a great way to build trust and personalization, which are key. So a great question to ask yourself, what are some characteristics of a customer-focused approach? How is it different from a product selling approach, right? So some roadblocks to kind of building amazing customer relationships, and even with the best intentions, there are some common habits and mindsets that can kind of get in the way of delivering a truly customer-focused experience. So let's kind of shine a light so that we can kind of steer them in the right direction. A lot of us have that kind of mentality of what's in it for me. Well, we want to switch that up to what's in it for them. When we focus too much on our own goals, whether those are sales targets, specific scripts, or products that we need to promote, we lose sight of what really matters to the customer. So we want to shift our mindset to think more, how can I help them win? So it's really kind of more of an inward focus versus outward focus. We're talking about our products, our process, our goals, and instead of asking about their needs, their story, their journey. So let's flip the lens and make it more about them. Now, when we're looking at tellers versus sellers, have you ever come across anyone who's just a feature dumper, where they list everything that product does, but never really ask what you actually need? So great sellers tend to ask, listen, and tailor the right solution. Are they manipulating or are they motivating? Pushing someone into a decision isn't the same as inspiring them to choose you. Motivation builds trust. Manipulation breaks it. So you definitely don't want to be that manipulative salesperson. Myopic blinkers, only seeing the world through your own product lens means missing the bigger picture. Step into your customer's shoes, and that's why we want to learn their story and kind of see the full view. And if you're struggling with relationship building, not everyone thinks, communicates, or works the same way. Learn to kind of flex your style to connect with different personalities and then cultures as well, right? For you guys as travel advisors, have you ever experienced one of these roadblocks, either as a customer or in your role? Which sales styles do you prefer when you're the one buying something? Do you want to be, feature dumped, or do you want someone to ask you great questions that kind of lead you to the right solution? What's the benefit to the customer when you use a consultative customer first approach? I can tell you what the benefit's going to be for you as travel advisors: repeat bookings, 100%. If a customer has a great experience with you and they go on this trip that you recommended because you listened and you effectively gave them the right solution, and they come back from that trip and had a wonderful experience, they're going to book with you again and again and again. For some of these travel advisors that I work with that have been in the industry for decades, that is their lifeblood, their past guest list. When things slow down, they reach out to their past guests and get that next booking. So it's really important to build a strong relationship and foundation with your clients. So let's move on to the next slide here. A skill set that I think we can all work on from time to time, right? Effectively listening. There are those who listen and then those who just wait to talk. I know we have a lot of people in our own personal lives, maybe, that kind of meet that description, right? Effective listening is your number one superpower in sales. Let's be real. If you love to talk, you're not alone. We're all salespeople, right? We're in this role because we like to connect with others. We like to kind of throw out our information to the world. But if you're doing all the talking, you're probably stuck in the product sales model approach where it's about telling your clients and not really connecting. If you want to build that stronger relationship, flip that script, listen first, ask questions, and then talk. That's really the heart of a customer focused approach, and it's how trust is built. So listening is a skill, not a trait. Most people aren't born great listeners. It's a skill that really does take a lot of practice, patience, and be present in that moment. But once you master it, it does become your most powerful tool for understanding your customer's world and offering solutions that actually fit best. So as learners, ask yourself, do you find yourself doing more talking or listening during your typical meeting with your clients? What's one thing that you could do to become a better listener starting today? And really use that approach to kind of focus on your next meeting. So, some practices that you can put into reality for effective listening: switch off your own problems. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I know it. You need to be able to switch that off so that you can focus and concentrate on the conversation at hand. You want to make sure to listen for good ideas from your clients, not just the words they're saying. Take notes. I do it all the time. And I even ask permission to my travel advisors. Is it okay if I take notes while we chat? Ask questions. Don't limit it to just you talking. Make sure to not interrupt once your clients do start opening up. Practice listening. Sit back and really just tell yourself, I'm not going to ask a lot of questions at the beginning. I'm just going to let them tell me what they're here for, why they set up this meeting today. Test their understanding, reiterate what they've said to you back to them. That always shows that you're paying attention. Summarize things effectively. That's a great way to even close the sale as well. And then, of course, listen for any overtones, body gestures. If you become really good at reading people, it's only going to make the sales process a lot smoother for you as well. So suggested versus exact needs can vary. A suggested need for somebody's, they're saying something like, my car uses too much gas. Okay, well, it sounds like their car uses too much gas. That's a suggestion. Where if your customers are coming at you with an exact need, it might be more like, I'm looking for a more economical car. So when a customer starts talking, they often begin with a feeling of frustration, a past disappointment, or a vague desire, and that's what we call a suggested need. It's general and emotional. It's often based on a past experience. Kind of sounds like, last time, this trip didn't go well, or, I just want it to be a lot smoother or easier this time. An exact need, this is the root. It's the clear, specific request that tells you exactly what they want to buy or solve. It's concrete and it's actionable. And it tends to sound like, I need a tour that includes a hotel pickup and flexible dates. So you want to use that spend model, asking those questions to turn feeling into facts. And the spend questioning process really does help you dig deeper. You start with that suggested need, ask thoughtful questions, uncover the exact need. And the stronger the need, the more powerful your learning solution becomes. So when you're looking at suggested versus exact needs, it's about uncovering the story and asking those great open-ended questions, right? Asking open-ended questions is critical. You don't want to ask these closed-ended questions where like, oh, did you like Italy? Yes, that's the end of that conversation, right? Instead, ask something like, what was your favorite part about visiting Italy? And that's going to open you up to like what they really kind of remembered most fondly. And that's going to help direct the conversation even further. So every story should start with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you can brainstorm some potential needs of your customers, and really kind of focus on meeting those exact needs for them as well. So for us, it's about asking for permission. It really kind of sets a nice tone when you're going to start asking your clients questions. It's really nice to just say, is it okay if I ask you a few questions to help really kind of find that perfect trip for you? They're actually going to appreciate that. So it really kind of helps explore your customers' needs. It might seem like a small step, but it does have a big impact, especially working as travel agents. You might have clients that are a little more guarded or skeptical about booking, and you really kind of open them up a little bit by asking them for permission. It also shows respect for their time and experience. It helps lower resistance and defensiveness. It builds a sense of collaboration, not interrogation, and it gives you a smoother path to ask deeper, more meaningful questions. So try saying something like, would it be all right if I asked a few quick questions to better understand what you're looking for? It's polite, professional, and puts the customer in the driver's seat. So it's important to kind of build these questions into your process to kind of get your customers to open up a little bit more. So, spend for travel advisors is about asking the right questions at the right time. When you're looking at that traditional, or I'm sorry, the CSP model of selling, you can kind of put the percentages based on the spend questions and what you're spending your time on. Some great spend questions to ask, tell me about your last vacation. Where did you go? And what did you love or not love about it? Another great question to ask, what kind of trips do you usually enjoy? Relaxing, adventurous, cultural? Are you celebrating anything special on this trip? That one's important, right? Because if they're celebrating a big anniversary, they might be feeling the need to splurge. Where if they're just going somewhere with their friends or family, it might be more of a budget travel option. So it's important to kind of get some great spend questions down that you can just easily memorize and refer to during the conversation. Moving on to P, problem or opportunity questions. What are the purposes of these types of questions? These questions uncover pain points or missed opportunities from past travel experiences. A great example, was there anything that didn't go as planned on your last trip? Have you ever felt overwhelmed planning a trip on your own? What would you change about your past travel experiences? So this is great because it's going to help you avoid, hopefully, not making that same mistake and putting them on something that they're not going to love as much. So now we're moving on to effect questions. Why ask effect questions? These questions help the client feel the impact of those problems or the benefits of doing things differently this time. Great examples. How did that experience affect your overall enjoyment of the trip? What would it mean to you to have everything taken care of this time? How would it feel to have a trip that's completely tailored to your personal style? So these are great effect questions that are going to get them thinking more emotionally and kind of moving them down that conversation to where we want them to be. And then needs payoff. Why are needs payoff questions important? These questions help the client visualize the value of your service and the trip that you're planning. So a great example, if I could take care of all the details and make sure everything runs smoothly, how would that change your experience? Would it be helpful to have a single point of contact from planning to return for your trip? How would it feel to just show up and enjoy knowing everything's going to be handled perfectly? So these are great ways to kind of add value to why you're there. You're there to basically cater the perfect trip for them, and you're already letting them envision what that experience is going to look and feel like. And then decision. This is where you present a customized travel proposal based on everything that you've uncovered. And a good example is based on what you've shared, I've put together a trip that includes everything that you're looking for, relaxation, cultural experiences, and a few surprises. Let me walk you through it together. So you're really kind of building that great solution and selling it effectively to your clients. So when you're promoting a product, think of it this way. You're going to focus on the feature, the advantage, and the benefit. Every customer has that story with past, present, and future. This is the characteristic of your service. You're going to take time to understand their full travel journey. That's what the feature is all about. The advantage, what does it do? Hearing your customer story gives you insight into their likes and dislikes and travel style, and this helps you tailor your recommended recommendations based on real preferences and not assumptions. And then benefit, what it means to them. You can avoid suggesting destination styles or experiences that don't really suit them. Making their trip feel, maybe personal, seamless, and unforgettable is a critical portion of that benefit to them, right? So this is where the magic happens. You kind of connect the dots between what you want to offer and what they truly need. If you're looking at features, advantages, and benefits, for example, using a sweater, a feature of a sweater, it's made from thick, insulated, high-quality wool. The advantage is that the materials retain body heat and keeps you warm even in cold, windy conditions. The benefit is you stay cozy and comfortable no matter the weather, whether you're out for a winter walk or curled up by the fire. No more shivering or layering up with bulky clothes. So when you look at every single product out there, everything has that feature, the advantage, and the benefit. The more you can kind of break each travel product that you offer into this nice little acronym, it's going to help you promote your products effectively to your clients, right? So beginning, you want to set the stage, summarize what you've discussed so far, confirm their needs, state your purpose to recommend a solution that fits exactly with what they're looking for. A good example would be, so far we've talked about your desire for a relaxing getaway with minimal travel time and lots of cultural experiences. What I'm hearing is that you want something stress-free, immersive, and memorable. The middle part is where you present the solution. This is where you introduce your recommendations, supporting it with those fab statements, linking each with that benefit that directly to something the customer has already said, that what's in it for me, for the customer. So for a good example, I'd love to tell you about this 7-day Tuscany escape. I think it's exactly what you're looking for. It includes a private driver feature, so you don't have to worry about navigating unfamiliar roads, advantage, which means you can fully relax and enjoy the scenery just like you said you wanted, benefit. So it also includes a small group wine tastings and cooking classes, which you mentioned were a must-have. So you may need a little more time to kind of go through the fab, but it really does present a full solution to your customers and it kind of stacks the benefits, which means they're going to be more and more excited near the end there. And finally, we're going to ask for the sale, right? We want to make our recommendation feel like a natural next step. We want to ask a decision question to move things forward. And then we really want to outline the next step, right? How does that sound? Would you like to go ahead and reserve your spot? So this is really what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get to that point where we can make the booking. So just remember the 3 principles of CSP is focusing first on the customer. The customer is always right. Focus second on the solution. And then just remember being right is not persuasive. So now that we've completed the CSP section, I just wanted to throw out some effective closing techniques that could be beneficial for those that maybe get a little nervous during the closing part of the process. Similar to what we've already learned, we're going to focus on those features, advantages, and benefits. And then I'm going to show you a couple of different closing techniques that you can definitely keep in your toolbox to be able to effectively promote these to effectively use these closing techniques when it matters, right? When you're trying to make that booking. So one of the first closing techniques that I absolutely love is the assumptive close. It really just kind of assumes that the client is ready and you're going to proceed confidently. So something you can say is great, since this tour fits, excuse me. You can say something like, great, since this tour fits your travel window and budget, let's go ahead and secure your spot while availability lasts. This works really well when the client has shown consistent interest. It helps build confidence and trust, and it also reduces decision fatigue. And pardon me while I take a sip of water here. Got something caught in my throat. Here we go. It also keeps the momentum going. So if the client is excited or leaning towards the booking, this technique keeps the energy high and prevents second guessing or delays. People like to buy from people who are confident. So the assumptive close is a very confident way of saying, listen, this tour fits your travel window and budget. Let's go ahead and secure your spot while availability lasts. Worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, well, we're not quite ready yet. But if they say yes, you've made the booking and you can kind of move on to the next one. It also feels pretty natural in a conversation, and it also works best with warm leads, people that you already kind of know want to travel during a specific time or date. The next close, the urgency close. It creates a gentle but real sense of urgency. You can say something like, this tour typically sells out quickly, especially for the dates that you're looking at. Shall I go ahead and lock it in before it's gone? You really want to use this only when there's an actual urgency to maintain that credibility, right? It encourages immediate action. It reflects real-time travel constraints. It also increases perceived value since it's a popular tour and it could sell out. It also breaks through that indecision. Some travelers tend to hesitate out of fear of commitment. A time-sensitive nudge can really help them act decisively. It also aligns with the nature of travel planning because travel is time-bound. Dates, seasons, group size, the urgency close feels authentic in context because it's not actually a trick. It's often the truth, right? If they don't book at that moment, the pricing could go up, that trip could sell out, that date might no longer be available. So the urgency close creates a respectful sense of pressure that helps travelers prioritize their booking, avoid disappointment, and move forward with a decision that they're already inclined to make. This one I think is probably the most effective one. So if you remember any of the closing techniques today, definitely focus on the summary close because it's a very easy way to summarize what you've already discussed and move your clients to that decision phase. So all you're going to do is recap the key benefits before asking for a commitment. So you get a small group experience, expert local guides, all transportation covered, and that special wine tasting in Tuscany. Should I reserve your spot now? This reminds the traveler why the package is valuable. It highlights the full value of the tour by summarizing everything the traveler is getting. You really help them see the package as a complete high-value experience, not just a list of features. It triggers emotional and rational buy-in. It brings together both emotional motivations, excitement, bucket list moments, and logical benefits, the price, convenience, the inclusions. It's appealing to the whole decision-making part of our brain. It also shows that you've been listening. This technique makes the client feel heard and understood. You're not just pitching a tour, you're recommending their tour. And it also reduces objections before they arise. When clients hear a well-framed recap of the tour's features, they're less likely to object because you preemptively address key concerns. It also naturally leads to a confident close. It sets up a smooth and easy transition to asking for the booking without sounding salesy or aggressive. So the summary close helps the client clearly understand the value of the guided tour, reminds them that it matches their needs, and creates a natural pathway to a confident yes. It's respectful, personalized, and highly effective as well. The next one is the either or close that offers two clear choices to guide decision making. Would you prefer to start the tour in Rome or Florence? I can get it booked either way today. This psychologically shifts the focus from if to how. So we're going to shift that focus, and this technique assumes the sale is happening and focuses on the details of the decision. It also reduces what's called decision paralysis, where travelers often get overwhelmed by too many choices. By narrowing it down to two, you simplify the decision-making process. It also creates a sense of progress. When clients make even a small choice, it creates momentum towards booking. Every yes moves them closer to a final commitment. It also puts the clients in control. You're not forcing a decision, you're empowering the client by offering options. This builds trust and makes the conversation feel collaborative. It also works well with warm leads. For clients who are already kind of leaning in, the either or close helps finalize the details without triggering hesitation. So the either or close really helps travel advisors guide clients to a decision by narrowing choices, avoiding pressure, and keeping the conversation focused on how they want to move forward, not if they will. So it's confident, client-friendly, and effective for warm or indecisive leads. And then moving on to the soft close. For those of you that get a little nervous during the closing process, this is going to be perfect for you because you're just gently kind of putting a low pressure approach to a commitment. So it invites kind of this low pressure commitment to move forward. Something you could ask is, would you feel comfortable if I sent over a booking form to hold your space and we can finalize everything afterward? This is ideal for clients who need a nudge without pressure. It reduces pressure, it builds trust. The soft close removes the high pressure feel of traditional sales tactics. It gives the client space, which can actually increase the comfort level and trust in you. It keeps the conversation moving forward. Instead of forcing a yes or no, the soft close keeps the momentum going with the next step, like sending a quote, placing a temporary hold, or penciling in specific dates. It also opens the door for honest feedback. By being gentle and non-confrontational, the soft close often prompts the client to share their real concerns or hesitation. It also respects your buyer's timeline. Some travelers need time to consult with others, check work schedules, or maybe just think things over. and a soft close respects all of that. So it's a really great technique for those that are maybe a little more apprehensive during that closing process. The final close that I just wanted to introduce in closing is the scarcity close. It highlights exclusivity or limited opportunity. You can say something like, this tour is already a definite departure, which means there's only a few spots left. Want me to hold one in your name while we finalize the details? This kind of triggers a psychological FOMO or fear of missing out, which is a powerful motivator. It creates a sense of urgency to act now. Scarcity naturally drives people to make quicker decisions. If a traveler knows that there are limited spots or prices may rise, they're more likely to commit. It also increases perceived value of the tour. When something is in short supply, it feels more desirable. The client starts to think, if it's almost sold out, it must be a good tour. It also helps overcome procrastination. Travelers often delay booking even when they're interested. So scarcity kind of pushes them off the fence by showing that waiting could actually mean missing out. And it also works well with real-time availability and limited offers. Tours, flights, and accommodations are truly limited resources. When scarcity is genuine, you're not applying pressure, you're protecting the client from potential disappointment. And as I mentioned, it triggers that FOMO, that fear of missing out. It's really a strong emotional motivator. The scarcity close kind of taps into that instinct we all have and encourages quicker commitment, especially for bucket list destinations or seasonal experiences. So in summary, the scarcity close drives action by emphasizing limited availability, increasing the perceived value of the tour, and creating a healthy urgency. When used ethically, it helps clients make timely decisions that benefit both them and your business. And the best thing that I can give you guys after we've discussed increasing or improving your sales techniques, always be confident. Confidence is essential when closing a booking because it builds trust, reassures the client, and drives action. When you speak with confidence, it signals to the traveler that you're knowledgeable about the destination tour and your logistics. They can trust you to handle the details and deliver a smooth experience. You're also, when you're a confident travel advisor, you kind of guide your clients towards a decision without hesitation, what helps reduce doubts, overcomes objections, and creates a sense of momentum. So uncertainty, on the other hand, can make even an excited traveler second guess their plans. So in short, confidence inspires more confidence. When you believe in what you're offering, your clients are going to believe it too. And that's what's really going to get those bookings over the line. So if you like any additional tips on how to improve anything that we discussed here today, I'm always available to set up kind of one-on-one consultations. I was recently certified as CSP Gold within TTC, so I can definitely kind of help you work through that process. But that is everything that I had for you guys today. So I do appreciate you attending this webinar. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes to help out with that.